Ma'am, we can start. We are live.
Okay, thank you. A very good evening to all of you. Our guest speaker, Mr. Reuben Mathew Philip, and all my dear students. It's my pleasure to introduce Reuben to all of you. Reuben completed his B at DBIT in 2016. He has done his master's, that is MS, from Northeastern University. On graduation, he joined the PeopleSoft ERP team at Boston Children's Hospital. He worked on multiple process automation projects and an ERP HWMS integration project during his time there. He's currently a business analyst at Amazon in the global specialty fulfillment space, where he's working on business intelligence and process automation solutions. On behalf of Computer Department and DBIT, Ruben, we welcome you. And I guess, yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Priya, ma'am. And before I begin, I want to say it's such a pleasure to be back at DBIT. It's what, 6 years, and I was sitting in this classroom, and it's such a pleasure to be back here presenting to you. It feels unreal. And I hope that the information that I have for you, you find it useful and it helps inform any future career choices that you make if you choose to enter this space or any other space. So yeah, with that, let's get started. Let me share my screen real quick. Oh, ma'am, I can't share my screen. Do you mind enabling screen sharing, please?
Yes. Now I think you should be. Could you please check?
Yes. Great. Okay, I can see you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, welcome to this quick session. I'm just going to share some insights from my experience working with ERP solutions and try to guide you in this space. So a little bit about me, more than like a slight explanation of everything that Priya ma'am already shared. So I graduated from DBIT in 2016, and after that I took some time to really think about what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And one of the spaces that I felt that would really benefit from technology was the global supply chain space. And this was definitely one of the courses that had some bearing on that decision. But even otherwise, contextually, if you think about it, global supply chains historically have been known to be relatively slow. For some context, right, like a truck, if you think about it, when does a warehouse expect a truck to reach? And there's no specific time because you never know. There's traffic. There's there's breaks maybe the trucker wants to take in the middle. So it's usually a window, and the rest is and there's these buffers created into the supply chain because of different such windows. So the truck will arrive between 8 and 10 a.m. That's a narrow window for a truck. And then the warehouse needs to batch all the trucks that come in during that period and then process it. And then there's another buffer within the warehouse between different processes, and so on and so forth. And because of all these buffers, we find that supply chains tend to be relatively slow. And I felt like computer science is technology in general is something that could really help speed up supply chains and make them more efficient. And that's why I decided to major in supply chain and industrial engineering at Northeastern, and focused all my work in tech applications of improving supply chain efficiency. During my time at Northeastern, I also interned at this place called the Harts Corporation. It's this automotive manufacturing firm here in Massachusetts, which was a great experience. Post-graduation, I worked, like ma'am said, at the PeopleSoft application team at Boston Children's Hospital. And most of my work was with the financial and procurement module of PeopleSoft. And I'll get into more of that as we go through. And currently at Amazon, I work in the global specialty fulfillment space. And for some context into what that is, global specialty fulfillment is the group that owns getting product to customers in less than a day. So think about same day delivery or Prime Now or 2-hour grocery deliveries, any of that sort. We're the group that like creates solutions to be able to handle that speed of delivery. And you probably know, like things are, we're trying to make things faster. Like we're working towards 1-hour delivery and like faster than that. So it's a really exciting space to be in. Before I go ahead, I need to make this disclaimer that any opinions that I'm sharing today are personal and my own and should not be construed as those of any official position of Amazon, Boston Children's Hospital, or any other previous employer. And with that, I'm gonna go to the next slide. Okay, so with ERP systems, I'm sure you've, through your coursework, you've had a ton of discussion around, okay, like there's so many different kinds of ERP systems. Which one do we pick, right? Like there's out-of-the-box solutions, there's custom solutions, and then there's a ton of stuff in the middle. There's your hybrid, and then there's like customizations of out-of-the-box and so on and so forth. There's like this whole spectrum between using like the system and then customizing it all the way to, like just making your own custom solution. The way that I like to think about it is this end of the spectrum, just the direct out of the box, is great for what I like to call your standard across organizations type of processes. What do I mean by that? It means the best example I can give you is your typical HR payroll process. So PeopleSoft HCM was used by Boston Children's Hospital and is used by Amazon as well for the HR side of things. And the reason it's such a great solution is that most companies have certain amount of employees. They pay them a certain amount of money. They get paid at a certain frequency, weekly, monthly, whatever. They have certain amount of benefits. They have they need to like track certain information like tenure and so on and so forth. And most companies across the world like do these standard processes, no matter how small or big you are. So as long as all your processes fit in, and like PeopleSoft HR takes care of all of these processes. So if that's all you want to do for your HR solution, then it's great, right? Like your like most of you know, out-of-the-box solutions are relatively cheaper to own and implement than a custom one. So that's a great solution to have. You don't have to worry about it. It works. Everyone's using it. So great. Let's just do that. As we get into finance and procurement, those are another two good examples. So for some understanding of like what a procurement system is, right? So PeopleSoft procurement, I'm just going to give you examples of PeopleSoft because that's the one I've worked with. Procurement deals with purchasing. So think that any purchase that Boston Children's Hospital, for example, makes goes through PeopleSoft procurement. So what does the system need to do? It needs to create a purchase order for each order that we need to make. It needs to keep track of vendor information. Okay, who are we buying this from? Where to send this purchase order. So that we need their address, their payment address, their ordering address, and all that information. We need to know, okay, so where should they send the stuff when they get this purchase order? So it needs to track the list of all the addresses that we have. So do I want to come to my office? Do I want to come to my boss's office? And so on and so forth. It needs to track budgets and approvals because while I can create a huge purchase order and send it to a vendor, I shouldn't be able to send it if like somebody doesn't approve it and we don't have the money to afford it. So it has this whole approval process that every purchase order needs to be approved. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into it, but that's a simple example. And then it needs to be sent out, which can be email, EDI, which we get into, and or phone, fax, whatever. And on the other side of it, the finance side of it, we get invoice. So as soon as you send out a purchase order, we get an invoice in. And in order to pay the invoice, there's a couple of things that you need to check. So the system checks, okay, is the price on the invoice the same as the price on the purchase order? Is the quantity the same? Did we actually get this product? Like, did the receiving doc say that, okay, these products were received? And a bunch of other things before it gets paid. Once it gets paid, the system needs to deduct, pay the vendor, however, check, direct deposit. And then they need to deduct money from the budget that the purchase order was created out of. And then all of this is written to the organization's general ledger, which, is needed for most financial audits across organizations. So the reason I'm going into this is that these processes are usually standard across organizations. Like everyone needs to have a general ledger. How you maintain it is usually up to you, but you need to maintain it somehow. So if what sets you apart as an organization is not, like your differentiating factor is not these functions, then probably using one of these out-of-the-box solutions is the best idea for you. One big piece of this, or like one thing that you should probably think about, is total cost of ownership. And I know you've covered this as a part of your syllabus as well. And we talk a lot about the upfront cost and then the ongoing maintenance cost. But one big concept is that of opportunity cost. And that's usually one that requires more forethought than the other two. And what that is thinking about what am I missing out on by investing in this out-of-the-box solution? Like, what is the limitation of this out-of-the-box solution? And how much is having those limitations going to cost me? For example, using an out-of-the-box solution probably won't give your customer live insight into where their product is in the flow. You can see it, but it's not that easy to give that visibility to a customer. Is that something that your business wants to differentiate itself on? And if so, what's the cost of it? And how are you going to measure it? And is it worth the saving of having the out-of-box solution? So that's a big factor that goes into that. And now I've spoken about like most of these use cases, and you're probably wondering like, okay, this is all cool, but we are computer science students, why do we have to worry about like what different solutions are? And where do we come in? So that's where we'll go next. And the way that I think about it is typically no ERP system is 100% fit to a business. And HR systems are like usually upwards of 90% because most organizations have a similar structure. But then as we get into like other systems, there's always like that 1 or 2 or 3 features that a business usually wants that ERP systems aren't able to cater to. And the reason usually is that like that's usually things that business wants to differentiate itself on the basis of. So where do we come in, right? Depending on what sort of solution you're working on, you will be part of like these different points here. And one is the initial implementation. And so even an out-of-the-box solution needs to be customized for an individual business. It needs to and usually the vendor will do it for you and they'll make it part of the initial cost. But it usually, most organizations do invest in having at least 1 or 2 developers on staff to be able to have a record of what was that customization that was done so that they can keep maintaining it. Because usually consulting with the vendor on an ongoing basis is more expensive. So that's one major place that you come in. Let me give you an example of some of these, what these modifications typically look like. So Boston Children's Hospital, we use the procurement and finance system that I described exactly the way that I described it. But we wanted a feature add. So we wanted to give our customers the ability to search for products in the system. Like before they order and create a purchase order, we want to be, hey, these are all the products we have available. Here's pictures of these products. And we wanted them to see at the top of the list, hey, these are the products that we have a contract for. So pricing is better than it would be in the general market. These are products that we have in stock. So if you order it, the product is sitting in the basement. So you will get it like in a few hours or the next day. Or if you want, you could even walk down and go get it. And then there's all these different identifiers. And those are specific to Boston Children's Hospital, right? So we wanted to give our customers that ability. In addition to that, we have partnerships with our vendors where they create specific what we call punch-out sites, which is basically like a retail site, but created specifically for a certain business. So think Amazon.com, but Amazon.com only for Boston Children's Hospital employees. So the way this would work is we partnered with an external vendor who would create this whole search UI and onboard all our items to it with pictures and all that information we need. And then they were able to iframe us into this third-party vendor site so that, okay, just going back a little bit. So from PeopleSoft, we needed an authenticated user to move into our partner website, where they can search for items and then add things to their cart and bring it back to PeopleSoft, still authenticated, and then create a purchase order out of it. The second use case is they come into our partner website. They, from there, are able to iframe into a third-party website, Amazon.com for Boston Children's, Thermo Fisher, and different companies, and then browse their products on their own website, bring it back to our partner website, still authenticated, and then take it back into PeopleSoft and build an order. And there's so many advantages of this, right? Like when you go into a partner website, you know that the pricing is going to match. We no longer have to maintain those items because they're doing it for us. And we know that the purchase order price is going to be the right price because we literally got it from them like seconds ago. So these are like relatively simple customizations, but these are like customizations that require a dev effort in the sense that, okay, so the authentication piece is one. The second piece is for our partner to be able to show all these information about our items and vendors and all of that. We need to have a sync. So they need to know what items we stored, what items are in stock, what items we have contracts for, and all that information we need to sync with them. We need to sync our vendor information and so on and so forth. So all these feeds need to be created. And who creates that? You do. So that's one of those initial customizations. Ongoing maintenance. So most out-of-the-box solutions, they have like versions, right? Like every year, they usually do an upgrade. And while these are not necessary, they're usually recommended because most have security patches and so on and so forth. So the same one or two developers that I mentioned most organizations have, they're usually taking care of this ongoing maintenance and upgrades as well. And another piece of it is any customization you do needs maintenance because someone somewhere is going to change like a thing about an item, like a third-party website suddenly has 41 characters in their item name. And then when you like created the initial customization, you created it to be a 40-character field. So now like things are breaking downstream because somebody somewhere changed something. So we need developers to like be there to handle those kind of issues. And the last big one is ERP integrations. So this is typically this typically happens when the business decides that, hey, we need a new system to do something because our current system isn't cutting it. Or a business decides to expand in a new area and they decide to use a new system that needs to be integrated with their primary ERP. An example of this is when we decided that we wanted to open a warehouse. And the way that this works is that the warehouse has its own third-party warehouse management system, a hybrid HWMS. And since it's our warehouse and PeopleSoft is our primary ERP, we own all the product in that warehouse. It's managed by the WMS, but PeopleSoft all of those products need to be in PeopleSoft. People are ordering that product through PeopleSoft. The warehouse is replenishing. So when something goes out of stock, they need to replenish it through PeopleSoft because that's where all the money is. So that's a big project, right? Like there's so many feeds that go back and forth. And everything needs to be as close to real time as possible because of the fact that our customers need to get product as efficiently as possible. So that's one of those big integration projects. And another one that I want to talk about is ERP migrations. So that's something that's up and coming. Most ERP solutions are moving to cloud-based solutions. So for some context there, right now, a lot of organizations have on-premise ERP solutions. What I mean by that, the servers are literally on-premise. Like they have an overhead cost of like buying these servers, maintaining them, and doing all the maintenance that it takes to like have servers up and running. and they have their databases and all of that on premise. Most ERP systems are moving to a cloud-based model where they're offering, hey, we can like take care of doing this on the cloud. And every business has some challenges with being able to do that. For healthcare, it's like, okay, we need to make sure that we're HIPAA compliant because we can't, we need to store our data on premise so that we have like security control over it. And there's regulations around that. So working with that is a big up and coming challenge for developers to work on. And now that's the out of the box space. We've kind of covered out of the box, and then we've kind of covered until a little bit middle and more of out of the box customizations. Let's talk about custom solutions. Why would you use a custom solution? Because like you've studied, it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to make. It costs a lot of money to keep maintaining, and you might not even get it right the first time, right? Things don't perform as expected because these out-of-the-box solutions have been doing this for years and years, and they perfected it. So you're typically trying to create your own version of it. So there's a lot of cost involved. But the main reason that you would do it is because you want to do something that isn't you have a business use case, or your product itself needs a system that none of the out-of-the-box solutions offer you. And the best example I can give you of this is Amazon's supply chain model, because just the speed of it is something that most out-of-the-box solutions aren't able to handle. Let's take an example of just a single fulfillment center, right? So I don't know if anyone has seen an Amazon fulfillment center tour, but for some context, a product comes in from a vendor, from a third-party seller, and then it needs to be stored in the warehouse somehow. It goes into these conveyor belts, and then reaches, it needs to be stored away. As soon as it's scanned in and it comes in, most of these are randomly stored. So a robot, one of those Amazon robotics robots, those tiny little things, they pick up a shelf, bring it to a person who then puts it in the shelf, scans the product, scans the shelf, and that's how the system tracks that, hey, this product is on this shelf. Then, as soon as an order comes in, as soon as a customer hits checkout, right? If this is, okay, before I even get into that, there's a whole planning system at play. So when a customer is checking out this product at on .com, this whole planning system that exists in that moment is calculating for the customer what the estimated arrival is going to be. How is it doing that? It's calculating the time it's going to take for this warehouse to be able to pick that product and get it into the right truck. It needs to know, okay, which are the trucks that are going to this customer's area, and when are they leaving? How long? Which truck will this product fit on? How long does it take to get there? Once it gets to the last mile's delivery station, what are the last mile solutions available to get that product from that delivery station to the customer? And based on these calculations, the planning system tells .com, hey, you can tell the customer that they will get this product tomorrow by 11 a.m. That itself is a level of complexity that not a lot of ERP systems can handle. Let's keep that part aside. As soon as you hit checkout, and sometimes even before, there's already one of those robots on the way to the shelf to pick up your product and bring it, not your product, the entire shelf, and bring it to a picker. So the shelf lights up, tells them, hey, this bin is where the product is. They take the product out. They confirm by scanning that this is the right product and put it in the bin. Think of all the information that needs to be stored, and all the integrations that need to go into this. It needs to be integrated into robotics. It needs to be integrated into shelf signals. Once that product is scanned and put in a bin, that system is talking to the conveyor system that, hey, this product that was just scanned needs to go to the Philadelphia truck. So the conveyor system is this huge line of conveyors that runs above the warehouse. It's based on that one scan. It goes to the right place. On the way, there's a shipping label that's applied with all the information that this needs about, which truck it's going to, what the delivery station is, and so on and so forth. And then it reaches the right truck, it's scanned into the truck, and then it departs. So yeah, that's That's kind of the scale of it. And then let's not even we won't even get into what happens after that, because this itself is so complex and so custom that there's no out of the box solution that can fit this kind of a business use case. And why is that important? Because this is what we're trying to differentiate ourselves, in the as an organization, right? We want to wow our customers by how fast we can bring product to their doorstep, and which is why we're going to keep innovating to be able to get that, make that happen faster and faster and faster. So that's kind of example of a custom solution. Next thing I want to cover is, what does it take to succeed in this field, right, of ERP systems? And this kind of varies on that same spectrum as before, of out of the box to custom. For out of the box, and this is all in addition to being a strong developer, the first one is understanding the software. And that's really important because most out of the box solutions have existed for a very long time, and they have a lot of intricacies built into them. One single process in PeopleSoft touches different modules based on how many modules you have installed. So just knowing one change you make, how it impacts different fields and different modules is really important. And this is something you typically learn on job and interacting with senior developers on your team. Associated database knowledge is another super important thing, because all ERP systems have databases associated with them, because there's this wealth of data that needs to be stored and accessed continuously. Scalability is a big thing. So being able to based on your business use case, being able to optimize your database and your needs accordingly. And the last one is a strong understanding of the business process being served by your software. And that comes into play because it's more of a business side of a developer, which is, hey, it's going to be relatively easy to create a quick fix for a certain process, but it's also very easy to miss edge cases while you're doing that. A simple purchase order process can have a lot of intricacies to it based on what organization is doing it, and just the different kinds of purchase orders. There's standing purchase orders, which is basically saying that, hey, here's $100,000 to be used the entire year to order gloves. So we need to be able to pay that without it matching, because it's never going to match. There's no quantities on there. There's nothing on there that's telling you, when to pay this. So that's one side of a purchase order. Then there's your capital orders, which is stuff oh, we're building this new building, and now we need to be able to pay construction workers. Again, nobody's delivering construction workers to your dock. So, that just works very differently than it would a physical order. And then there's even with your regular orders, there's different kinds of purchase orders. So as a developer who's building a process, it's really, really important to understand each and every path that the process follows, and not just current case, but even future state, to be able to succeed on that front. And then on the custom solution front, you need all these. And I guess a really the excitement of taking on that interesting and unknown problem space. I'm going to end with I guess one thought that I had was, okay, this is all cool, but how do I know which path do I want to go, and what problem do I want to solve? And one good way to look at that is, and this applies to not just ERP systems, but in general, after you graduate or once you start working, what do you want to be doing? And one good way to think about that in my mind is think about what subset of problems you want to be solving. Because no matter what path you pick, right, you will be solving a certain subset of problems, not one specifically, but a certain subset. If you go into out of the box as a developer, you'll probably be working a lot on cloud migration. You'll probably be working on maintaining these customizations. And there's some really cool use cases there of perfecting an existing solution and creating modifications that enable customers to do more with it. If you go into the custom field, like there's so much to do there. Like a simple use case, right, that I can think of is last mile delivery, which is like this beautiful landscape of problem statements. Think about in the sense that, okay, grocery delivery, right? 2-hour grocery delivery. As soon as the customer places an order, you need your system to assign that order to a pick path of somebody who's working in the grocery store, along with all the other like orders that are being processed by that store. And you have X amount of drivers who will then pick up the order and take it to the customer. You need to be able to optimize among all the drivers available. You need to create an optimal route. So like group all the customers in that area in one route, and then assign it to that driver, and then be able to communicate to that driver, however, what orders to pick up, and then like facilitate that entire process. And all the while, like maintain that level of abstraction for every user of this process. What do I mean by that? What I mean is the picker doesn't care about what the order is. He only cares about, hey, like what do I need to pick, and how can I best do that job? Like where do I need to go to pick my next item in the store? The driver doesn't care about who the customer, when the customer ordered it, who picked the order. All he cares about is when I reach the store, this order needs to be ready. And I should have the most optimal subpath to get all these orders to these customers. And the customer doesn't care about like who picked the order, who's delivering it. All they care about is, okay, I was told that I would have this order between 9 and 11 p.m. Did it get here by 11 p.m.? If yes, great. If no, then I don't care about what went wrong. I just know that, this didn't work out the way you promised me. And if that's the space of like problem statements that really excites you, then that's where I would recommend going. So yeah, that's all from me. And I'd like to move on to taking any questions you guys have.
Hey Ruben, you have worked on a lot of ERP stuff from what you have talked till now. Your ERP knowledge, did you have so much knowledge right from the college, or like did you learn as in when you were working and all?
Thanks, Carlos. That's a good question. So I had a basic understanding of what an ERP system does. And that was primarily like this course that you're taking is the only course that I ever took to do with ERPs. But most of my learning was through the job. So when I joined the PeopleSoft team, I spent my first, I guess, few weeks just working my way around the system and asking questions with like different developers on the team who like, hey, what happens? What does this process do? And really looking at the code of like, okay, when I hit this button, here's the code that runs. Here are the fields that get updated. I created this schema of like how the database tables in Oracle, they're very like hierarchical. It's like the purchase order header, purchase order line, distribution, ship, and all that. So it's, most of it was learned on job. And the reason that is the case is because you have so many different solutions, right? Like it doesn't make sense for a course to teach you PeopleSoft because there's a relatively low chance that your workplace will use PeopleSoft and that you will be the person working on PeopleSoft. It's you could be using SAP and then custom solutions and like so on and so forth. So what's really important before is having a good understanding of like what is it that the system is trying to do at a high level. And when you join, like, okay, what are the different like modules you have, and how are the what are the different process paths, right? Like, I worked in purchasing, so like, what are the different kinds of purchase orders? What are the different ways that a customer can order? What are the different ways we can send this order to a vendor? What are the different ways that we pay this vendor, and what are the things that go wrong typically in the middle? Like, why do vendors not get paid, and then we get put, we have issues with that. So what causes these issues? And then as a developer, you dig into, hey, what does this look like on the back end, right? Because that's the business process. And then you have this whole visibility into the back end of things like, why is this causing an issue in the back end? And what can I do to fix it? Or what's an optimal way that I can help a business user from fixing this problem? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions?
If anybody has any questions, students, you can ask Reuben. So yeah.
There's one more question in the chat.
Yep, I just saw that. Scope of blockchain and ERP. So this is like a fully personal opinion. So this is, I'll answer it this way, right? Like it depends on what the scope of your business problem is. So if you're a system that really needs this, like, okay, let's back up a little bit. What is the problem that blockchain is solving? It's a distributed ledger, and it's providing like that like security, right? Like of like everyone trusts what's in the blockchain. Now, if you're a system that your entire ERP is within your own organization, that doesn't really matter to you. Like if I am sending out like payroll as an ERP system, doesn't care about that because everything in payroll is happening within the organization. If I'm doing procurement and it's fully inside the organization, I don't really care about that. And the way especially in terms of ERP, I don't think there's a lot of scope for using a blockchain because as like ERP as a concept is enterprise resource planning. So everything is within the enterprise. So there's usually not a need to like build a trust relationship within your own enterprise. And if you do, then there's something else that you need to worry about at that point. So yeah, those are my thoughts there.
I have a question. Like when you're implementing ERP in a company, like practically how long does it take for a complete implementation in a medium scale company?
Gotcha. It takes a while. And so two things, right? It depends on like what your implementation model is. Like, are you doing it a big bang approach where, like you suddenly switch from your previous model to an ERP, which is risky. So most people don't do that. If you're doing a phased approach where, hey, like let's do like this business, this department or this wing, and then like move it across, or let's test one location for like a year, iron out all the details and like issues that we face, and then move everything over. That kind of really plays into how long it takes. But even a big bang approach, I would say it takes like 6 months easy. It can be fast if you really need to go, if you really want to implement something and you hire like a lot of people and put in a lot of investment into making it happen faster. But for some context, like just the HWMS integration project, it took us, I would say 4 to 6 months to like plan and execute. So, and that's just like integrating the current ERP with an HWMS. And there was a team of like 15-ish people working on that. So implementing an ERP system altogether will take longer.
Okay.
Okay, so Reuben, even I have a question. There is something called as enterprise application integration. As in, does it happen that an organization, maybe for certain modules of the company, that's what we read actually. Maybe one solution is very good for specific, let's say, accounting and for finance, and for HR, this one solution is really good. And I might, but if actually for supply chain management and maybe for my marketing and sales, for CRM thing, I'll actually go for some other solution. That usually happens. Two different solutions a company can actually go for, and then those two solutions also need to communicate with each other. They need to send data forth, that. How difficult is that? Happens. How does that happen? if a company goes for more than one solution?
That's a great question. And that's super common because typically most ERP systems specialize in one piece. PeopleSoft, for example, was like started as a people management, like ERP, hence the name. So that's usually like, that is their best product. But on the materials management side, like this, they've really worked hard on it. But typically, like most warehouses don't use use their own, specific and very specialized warehouse management system, and that needs to speak to PeopleSoft if they're using the financial and financial and procurement module of it. So that's kind of what we did, and the implementation depends on how intertwined different modules are. So, for example, if you're using one HR module and then you're using another finance and purchasing module, it's not that intertwined, right? Like, what does it have in common? It's usually employees and their authentication. So, who can authenticate and log into this module, and keeping that in sync so that once a new person comes in, they have access. An old person leaves, they lose access, and so on and so forth. So there's not a much of that's the only integration you need. So that's relatively simple. You create a person feed typically, which is a text file that the system they exchange maybe once or twice a day, and that's easy. You can get through that in a week. But if you have a much more coupled integration, and the most coupled one I can think of is a warehouse management and purchasing, because even you mentioned marketing, right? Mostly Salesforce kind of systems, they don't typically interact as much with your purchasing and finance modules as your purchasing module would interact with the warehouse module. They do have some, especially with if what you're doing is getting orders through your CRM, and then your materials management needs to plan purchasing based on your forget the name of that word, what is needed to build that product basically. So that's still relatively less than what is needed if you have a third-party warehouse management. So to answer your question, the difficulty level of integration depends on how coupled the two modules that aren't belonging to the same vendor are with each other. The less coupled they are, the better for your integration. And one other thing that, so I'm not sure how much we worked with microservices in the past, but that's one thing that is really cool about most modern systems is the ability to send signals. What that means is literally sending API call to one system. As soon as an event happens, it sends an API call to another system. And it's standard, right? An API call is standard and it's inbuilt. And all you need to do at this end is create events that occur as soon as the signal is received. And that's a really cool way to have different systems talk to each other, because it reduces the need to tightly couple two systems together. You can just have them decoupled and then have them talk to each other.
Okay. Thank you, Reuben. Yeah. And okay, so students, if there's any more question you would like to ask, you can ask right now. Okay, so I guess then that's the end of the session. So yeah, Greza, you can please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, Reuben, for this wonderful session on ERP, throwing us so much insights and knowledge that you had got from your experiences and all with us. Thank you for sharing this information and helping us know ERP better, coming out of our textbooks and knowing it more practical way. And it actually helps to learn that way, because learning from the textbook isn't that interesting as also. So this is more better way to learn also. So I would like to thank Reuben for taking his time from his busy schedule and coming us and taking this session. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Rejo. I hope you guys found this at least a little useful.
So yeah, thank you, Reuben. Thank you all the students for actually attending this session. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. It was great being here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.